Wow, this is glitchier than my relationship with people.
So is this literally just about this dude being angry? Just written as like, hey, we're not going to help you, but we're going to tax you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Good enough.
I feel bad.
Do you know how much I don't want to be here? Do you know how much I would rather not be
Close
here?
enough.
Why didn't you put in that quiz grid?
What?
Do the thing.
What thing? I am.
You know that's on camera, right?
Shut up. You can go jump off my fridge. Like Thomas
So
Paine.
then I really will be your ex-roommate.
That would be great.
Oh my god, Avon.
Ah, what is this? What
In
the?
London.
Jacqueline, what is this? In my...
In your hair?
Oh my god, why? I'm not a fucking anime character. No. The camera is glitchy. I don't know. Wow.
Animal.
No, I'm not an anime character.
Alright, students, let me know you're here. Ayush? Here. Joshua? Here. Sierra? Here. Jacqueline?
Here.
Eden? Here. October? Amy?
I'm here.
Lisa?
Here.
Thomas? Here. Catherine?
Here.
Eden?
Here.
Diane?
So much pressure.
Jessica?
Here.
Lucian? Here. Sonia? Here. Alexander?
This is good enough.
Derek? Here. Colin? Here. Sybil? Here. Tande?
Here.
Amanda?
Here. I have put up.
Have you put them up?
I'll retry. I have time. I asked you to read Comic Sense for today, which means.
Yo, did you get a grade for gym?
Yes.
Mine's at a C.
So's mine.
Here.
So, we've talked about stamp Act, this crisis, 1765. And then for about 10 years, things kind of fester, and so by 1775, people are actually fighting. 1770 is the Boston Massacre. The Boston Tea Parties in 1773. There's still a couple of years, right? Common Sense, I'll tell you, is published in January 1776. I'll talk about this part. What happened on this day? July 2nd?
Declaration of Independence was signed 2 days later after that.
I make a big deal about this.
They met up and they actually decided that they were going.
July 2nd is the day that the Continental Congress votes on independence. And 12 vote for independence, and the 13th
Abstains courteously.
is New York, and it abstains. Thank you, good. What happens on July 4th?
It's signed. CERN finds the Higgs boson with the largest
That's what we do now.
collider.
The answer is nothing. August 2nd. August 2nd is when they actually start gathering signatures.
Wait, what?
And they don't all sign at the same time. They gather signatures all the way through, like, January of 1777. Some of the people who signed in 1777 weren't even at the vote in 1776. Like who? Oh, I don't know. I just know something more. Yes?
I require examples.
Really good question. I can think of two really good ones. It's not Ben Franklin's birthday. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both die on July 4th. On the same day, same exact day, 2 hours apart.
Were they killed?
Wait, how?
Same
But
year,
where are the
2 hours
Ides
apart.
of July minus 10?
They were they're.
11.
85 out of 0. What the hell?
Hey, did I tell you I deal with my seniors, right? I figured they were tired of hearing about Hamilton, so their password for turning it in. No, they died of natural causes. They were very old, but they happened to both die on the exact same day, 2 hours apart.
The second one died because he was broken
And it
heart
happened to
because
be
he
July
had
4th.
fire.
Big deal, right? It turns out they also had the same false memory of everything happening on July 4th, which they record in their memoirs. And so these two die on July 4th. They don't remember correctly.
It was
Things happened on July 4th, therefore we celebrate July 4th. Despite the fact that the actual historical evidence tells us July 2nd was the vote, August 2nd signatures are going to get.
The aliens! Oh my god, no, don't.
It is,
It was
odd.
aliens.
Right, exactly. It is odd, but coincidences happen all the time.
Yum yum.
Yeah, all of you need to take statistics. You do. You all have to take statistics.
No, it was aliens.
Probability means that eventually there has to be a coincidence, because otherwise we wouldn't have probability.
Yes, Daddy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, is what we say. Okay, the big question is, if Common Sense is being published in January 1776 and Independence is actually being voted on in July, why should we make a big deal about this? So, tell me, since I know that you are all so ambitious in your reading and you've all read down the letter this document, what is Thomas Paine talking about? He is what? Okay, yes. Oh, they're having a riot outside.
Oh my god, a riot. These are my people.
It's the Institute Party. It does have redundancy.
Not my team.
Okay, if I haven't said it already, when one of you in the room makes it rich and you want to make a big donation to IMSA at some point in the future, second floor of the A wing, with offices for the teachers that have natural light.
Yes! Oh my god, it's a cult.
Like the beginning of the
Fluorescent lighting.
necessary evil. He keeps saying that Great Britain has been necessarily but not like the area of the country.
Okay, it starts really getting interesting actually at that point. Tell me what else.
In terms of England and Europe in general, he says that they are not going to harm us because, like, they're sort of the parental figure, so it's not like they're going to harm the colonists.
What's this issue about harm and like mother country? What's going on? I've given you hints. Sometimes I've actually said it outright in this class so far.
When we were talking about all the conflicts and stuff, all of the conflicts had to do directly with England and then indirectly affected the colonists. So, colonists being associated with England was the only reason the colonists.
So what's Paine's position? Sorry, it was getting loud. There was a riot outside. I see you're unmolested. Yes, I'm Martin President. Is that okay? So what's his position?
That the colonists should not be
Okay, so one thing he says, oh, you know the great benefit of independence, all this stuff I've been telling you about how they just want to trade and they don't want to have to be bothered. He puts that down and he says, wouldn't it be great if we had independence? Because then we won't be pulled into all these conflicts with all these people that we have nothing against.
You also know, like, it's like, English government, like, they're, jealous of, like, America's prosperity, and then, like, they also know, like, that, free country, yeah, it is. The law to be the king, that the king is the law. Like, the king has, like, all his power, like, he should have all his power over, like, America, because, like, they should promote the country, because, like, they're the law of the country. Like, the king
this comment he makes about islands? Yes.
Is it like the story that you have about like the island?
The island and
Like it's the people that are on the island and like it's like they make laws like amongst themselves and laws they follow.
oh, that's a good point. That wasn't really what I had in mind.
I'm sorry. The argument he makes is that like islands are the places that should be governed by other people.
Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting in that it's entirely rhetorical. When you think about it, it doesn't make any actual sense, right? Rome was a city, but it governed an entire continent. So what difference does it make size? The point is, Britain has a really massive navy and a whole lot of soldiers, and they're able to control things. He seems to be suggesting, though, that by virtue of the fact that colonies have so many people and it is such a big geographic space, therefore Britain doesn't really or shouldn't have any ownership on it. Again, it comes down to power. He's kind of sidestepping that whole thing and just saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter." It's rhetorical, but it's interesting. Which is kind of getting at another important point, because pain is reaching the masses. How well does common sense sell?
150,000 copies.
And what is the population of the colonies?
Too many.
This, by any estimate, this is a bestseller, especially when you think how big the families are. Like every family, practically every family has a copy of Thomas Paine's pamphlet. Certainly, if the estimate now is that about 20% of the colonists were in rebellion, about 40% were opposed, and the rest of them were kind of on the fence. If it's 20% of the families, that's like every one of them read Common Sense. That's a massive bestseller. And Paine wrote in a way that was very accessible. People could make sense of it. It's a lot different than reading the Federalist Papers, as you'll see shortly. But let's talk a little bit about Tom Paine, because he's an interesting character. Do you know what he was? Do you know how long he'd been in the colonies at the time that he's writing this seditious material and stirring up rebellion? Like less than a year. Do you know what he was doing in London before he actually arrived in town? This is where it starts getting. He was a tax collector.
I was close.
Oh, wait, it gets better. His friends, his tax collector colleagues, knew that he was pretty convincing. Like, not only he was a good speaker, but they knew he was a good writer. And so they said, "Hey, Tom, why don't you work some magic with that prose of yours and convince them to give us a raise?" Because he agreed that they'd help get paid more. So he writes to his bosses at whatever, the Ministry of Treasury or whatever it is. His what? Well, it would actually be run by the Parliament. They're in charge of the funding, right? But he writes this letter saying that, all of us lowly civil servants who are collecting taxes are underpaid and we deserve a raise. At which point, you want to guess what Parliament's reaction is?
Go away, we don't want you here anymore. Send them to the colonies.
Oh, it's even better. And they killed him, and then what we ended up with is Thomas Paine's corpse, right?
What zombies?
Need a win.
They'll have to make him a zombie.
The witch summoned him.
Okay. No, that's not what happens. They say you're fired. So they fire him. He ends up in this personal crisis because his wife is like, "You just got yourself fired." Who's going? Yeah, right. No, my friends didn't. I just signed it. Anyway, so he gets fired, and he's in this crisis, and he somehow convinces his wife that they should take the rest of their savings and move to Philadelphia.
After getting fired, he just seems like a best kind of decisions.
Wipes out what he has. They move to Philadelphia. He says, "I've got contacts there." One of them happens to be a local publisher named Benjamin Franklin. And Franklin is very impressed at his ability. He's written a number of things. Franklin says, "You can be useful." And it doesn't take long for him, again, to be writing this seditious, revolutionary material. By the time he arrives, he's already hearing people starting to use the word independence. And by December of 1775, he decides now is the time, he's going to write his big pamphlet, the one that's going to take the sentiments of the colonists and put it into words that will be convincing enough that they'll all want to follow through. This is what he's doing. In fact, not only is he not the pamphleteers, there were a bunch of them. Thomas Paine's most famous. There were a bunch of pamphleteers. They all, we would call them propagandists now, but essentially he ends up collecting a pension later on for his work as a writer during the Revolution. The other famous one, he's going to write another famous pamphlet later on. The Common Sense is going to be the most widely read. And so he's making a profession as a writer. Now, here's the really interesting, it gets even more interesting. So here's the guy who's failed as a tax collector and is now stirring up rebellion against the British. And as you're going to see, boy, the British sure could have saved themselves a lot of trouble if they just had given him that raise. After the Revolution, during the Revolution, he does two other things. He's not only advocating for independence and then trying to lift up people's spirits as the war is not going very well, he also is trying to convince people that women should be equal and that all the slaves should be free. He sounds like a guy who's living in the 20th century. And the problem is that a whole lot of people don't really like what he's writing. And so after the Revolution, he feels somewhat underappreciated. And so he decides he's going to go somewhere where he is appreciated. Mainly, no. Which doesn't even exist yet. What? They don't get independence until like 1820.
Oh my god, did someone just say cool?
No, he goes to France. Where they're about to have a revolution. And they're going to issue the Rights of Man, and he's going to write something called, which is essentially a pamphlet in defense of the rights of man. Oh, it gets better. Remember Burke, the parliamentarian we heard about yesterday? Edmund Burke, who's trying to defend the colonists in a sense and say, look, let's find a peaceful revolution here.
Isn't this the guy who got sent back?
Berkeley.
Yeah, nobody speaks Burke and Berkeley. You read about Berkeley. This is Burke, the guy from Parliament, not the governor. Burke is going to lash out at Thomas Paine's defense of the rights of man because Burke doesn't like how the revolution is run in France. And that pamphlet is going to lead to Thomas Paine being what would be the modern day equivalent of being on the terrorist list in England. If they ever see him, they will have him arrested and executed.
Me too.
Right? Because he's defending the French Revolution. And here's the irony of irony. So here he is defending the French Revolution, only to have the French Revolution go very bad and start killing its revolutionaries. He is moments away from being executed in France, Thomas Paine.
And then Superman comes.
Guillotine. It's very efficient.
And then he kills
Oh,
himself.
What they use it for? It's more. No.
Oh, no,
That was its age of glory.
This wasn't that was
They
the
should hang them
glory
upside down
immediately.
from his toes.
So
from the
he's
Eiffel
about to be
Tower.
executed, despite the fact that he's been doing all these things for them. The American ambassador to England was Thomas Jefferson, who comes to his aid because Jefferson is this Francophile who loves the French and he can, talk a good game with the French. He's like, yeah, don't kill him. But the result is now, okay, if he goes to England, he's going to be executed. If he stays in France, he's going to be executed. And he already left the United States because his ideas were a little too progressive for the time and nobody likes him. And so he manages to get himself a pension, as I was mentioning, for his time in the Revolution. And they had, during the Revolution, they had the rebels, the patriots, people doing independence, had been taking the land and the property from the people who sided with the king. And they basically, all those people either ended up back in England or in Canada. So,
Wait, so how did the French help the Americans with their...
I'll get to that. Anyway, so he returns to the United States, which is now the United States, and they give him this little farm that they had taken from these this monarchist family that had been on the wrong side of the revolution. And they give him their house in upstate New York. And there he could have quietly retired. But it's Thomas Paine. So he decides that would be funny if it was called that one. No. He decides, I haven't mentioned deism yet. Deism? Anyone familiar with deism? So the period of the American Revolution, because of the scientific revolution of the 18th century, there was this really like a half a century of very secular thinking. Jefferson actually goes and edits the Bible, okay, to remove all of the religious ideas from it. And says, there are good moral stories, okay, and we'll keep those intact, but we're going to remove all references to God and everything.
Just write a book.
And you can still buy this, actually. It's called the Jefferson Bible. The Jefferson Bible is still in print.
Yeah, how do you...
How to buy that?
Well, it's shorter than the regular one.
Oh, that's
But it's still big.
some stuff. Do you want some? No.
So, the deists believe that there was a God who created the universe and then after that left everything go. So, in other words, God is not really involved in people's human affairs. Humans are responsible for their own affairs. Now, this sounds perfect in a kind of, American Constitution kind of way. So, but this was something really only the most educated class in the country believed. You would find it in Thomas Jefferson, who was very well educated. Benjamin Rush, the physician of scientific declaration. The highly educated people. It wasn't something that was popularized. Thomas Paine comes to deism and decides he's going to do for deism what he'd done with the rest of his ideas in his career, and he's going to popularize this kind of secular notion of society. And he writes this pamphlet. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So he couldn't just enjoy a quiet retirement. He had to go write this document, and Paine, at some point, and I don't remember which of his writings, he says, "The world is my country, and my religion is to do good."
Yes. Did somebody say that?
It's kind of like, I don't really care about this other stuff. Hamilton is in this category too. And so Paine publishes this, and the result is that everyone hates it. They're like, why are we giving you a pension? Why did you come back here? We hate you. And so Paine kind of dies. But the house is actually a national landmark if you're ever in upstate New York. So this is Paine in this interesting career. What gets it all going is this, which we've determined is a bestseller. Okay, but it raises this big question. So, how is the war going in this first year and a half? No, they're spending most of their time in defensive maneuvers, trying not to be killed. And what I said was, they're pretty successful. They're very successful, actually, in their defensive maneuvers and in not fighting. But they're not winning any battles, and they get really, really lucky on 3 occasions.
It's like time out.
This is actually just one of the readings of World War I was that in the late 19th century the French and the Germans were competing to have more and more children in order to be able to have a larger population of young men to be able to kill the other people.
Something you went on television and saw women doing pregnant.
Well, that's actually Mussolini's Italy. He used to give out an award to the woman who had the most children, and it was a way of promoting.
What was the award? Wait, children at a time or like in life?
Another time. What if I were to tell you that by July 2nd of 1776, when the Continental Congress meets and they decide that they're going to declare independence, that it really wasn't a big deal? Huh? You wouldn't be surprised because I'm really good at like deviating everything for you. What might explain the kind of underwhelming? You want to take a guess? What would maybe piece this together? Something happens. Okay, so the rumblings of independence are happening throughout the fall. At one point, in fact, Abigail Adams writes to her husband John Adams and actually says, you know, given all of the talk of independence, it seems just a matter of time before we actually do this. The problem, of course, the war's not actually going on. But common sense happens in January. And over the next 6 months, between January, with the publishing of the Congress, and July, with the Continental Congress actually saying, we're voting on this, at the local level, like at the township level, and at the village level, and at the city level, communities are already voting for independence on their own. Hundreds of them. No, I've never seen anyone say, you know, there's thousands. We're talking about lots. So, which means at the local level, people have already decided they're going to be independent. So by the time the Continental Congress meets, they're making a decision for all of the 13 colonies going out of the states. It's not part of the colony.
Right. So what happens?
What happens is Andrew Jackson goes and takes it in Spanish.
He just borrows. Walks in here. This is mine now.
What if England gets better to get if they won?
If they won the revolution. Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, as we saw with the escalation of the concerns, they just keep wanting to push back, and there's never any, well, with the exception of Burke, right? There's not a whole, he's kind of a voice of reason, but for the most part, there isn't, I say voice of reason, Paine's piece on theism is called The Age of Reason. But for the most part, people are not thinking that way. They just want to, let's make our point. Parliament just wants to make its point. It has the right to do these things. And they're not getting the fact that all they're doing is upsetting the colonists because they can't understand the fact that the colonists have had all of this autonomy for so long. I mean, Massachusetts, at the time of the Revolution, they have 150 years of getting of self-government and taxing themselves. What in the world do they need Britain for? I mean, yes, they consider themselves British subjects, but most of them have never actually been there. And they're perfectly happy to be loyal, but they're kind of getting tired of being pulled into the conflict. And they don't like what they're seeing in terms of the revenue, so that's true. But they're also not representing, which is like the deal about the taxation and representation. And so, what does Britain expect? To have their British subjects be compliant. At the time of independence, though, when they actually make this declaration, they know that they're going, if they lose, they're going to be executed. The leaders know that that is the punishment for treason. What's that? Yeah, for them that wasn't an option either. Well, think about George Washington was the wealthiest man in the colony. He's not about to go live with you. Why? Because he married well. Young gifts of men, be gentlemen. Be gentlemen, which is to say, don't be jerks. And perhaps you'll be so fortunate as to marry well.
Are you kidding me? We're going to be rich in the future. We don't need to marry.
I have no idea where. Have you been there? Well, I actually think you can tell me.
Oh my.
Okay.
Oh my.
Did he have that house like as long as for a while?
Yes. Yes. So yes, thank you. Yes. So what happens, here's where I'm going to say the correlation and causation actually, meet up together. So the correlation is Common Sense becomes a bestseller, and wow, lo and behold, over the next 6 months, all these communities are declaring independence. A bunch of historians tend to see a cause and effect relationship with the fact that common sense is putting into words what a lot of people believe, and it's pushing them kind of over the top. And therefore, it's having an influence as an idea.
There was no like advertising back then.
There was.
Oh.
Well, how did they know? So, no, actually, there is a whole body of scholarship on this that I suppose could be really interesting. Which is basically rumors. Rumors. We still have rumors. Now we just call it fake news.
So like
Right?
colony-wide telephone?
No, there wasn't. But people were for entertainment. They were relying on like traveling loops and this kind of thing. There were newspapers that were being published, and people are reading these things and they're taking. And then if you were living in a place like Boston, which is a hotbed of rebellion, it would be really hard to be sympathetic to the king in a place like Boston. If you're in New York, it actually would be hard to be sympathetic to the rebels. And it would be easier to be sympathetic to the king. So it also depends on where you live. But the fact is, between the actual information, which does exist, you also have lots of rumors, some of which turn out to be true, some of which turn out to be the equivalent of fake news. But in either case, people are hearing things. Common sense is one of those things that just ignites this kind of interest, and so everyone is buying it.
Did the Patriots use alternative facts at all, like fake news, to
That's a
like,
good
kind
question.
of give them an edge?
The expert on this is a guy named Bernard Balin, who's written about the pamphleteers. And as I understand it, there was some stretching of facts from time to time. Okay, like I said, something about an island can't rule the country. I mean, that's rhetorical. It makes no logical sense at all. The bigger issue actually is that the Patriots were actually quite vicious in some cases against the Tories. As I said, Tom Paine ends up in a house where it was actually taken from his people. Here's one of the sticking points for me. One of the things about U.S.-Cuban relations, the U.S. always says, well, the Cubans never reimbursed the people for the property they seized during the revolution. And I'm like, yeah, and you know what? We never reimbursed any of the Tories who we stole property from during our revolution either. Therefore, I don't see why. What's that? Oh, we never reimbursed them either. So, where do we get off taking this position, right? But in some cases, it was actually quite violent. I mean, it was if you happen to have monarchist sympathies in Boston and people knew it, you were under immense pressure, in some cases abused, for having these ideas. The Sons of Liberty could be really nasty. They would tar and feather people. They actually pour tar on them and then feathers. And tar, incidentally, doesn't come off. You have to, if you tear it off, it will take off your hair and some skin sometimes as well. It was a nasty treatment. I saw you had your hand up for a while.
But I was like, okay, like, common sense is so popular. Why don't people
Well, this is when they start to like him. But then he starts writing this other stuff. They're like, well, we used to like you, but now we hate you. Because we liked it when you were the revolutionary who's talking about independence. We don't like you when you're talking about, freedom for slaves, equality for women, and, God not really being involved in our lives.
Wait, why did the English speak the French Revolution?
Because the revolution gets so bloody, and the American Revolution is actually tame by comparison. Well, yeah, I mean, Britain in particular is right next door. And if you were the upper class in England, if that kind of thing happened in France, that would be nasty. Because what's happening in France is they're trying to get rid of feudalism, which meant all of the aristocrats are to be, removed, and that meant, their heads removed from their bodies. They eventually behead the king, and then eventually the people who are actually pushing the revolution, they end up being beheaded as well. And so that's the revolution eating itself. It's at that point during the terror period when pain is actually facing.
How fast did they think that
The what? What do you mean?
Like they had settled the colonies, but did they know everything?
Oh, they don't know everything that's in there, but they have a rough idea of the scale. Yeah, they have a rough idea of the scale, and they continue searching for that northern passage. Yes, northwest. Lewis and Clark is 1803. No, well, there wasn't, but thanks to global warming, there will be soon. Yay, global warming.
Global warming makes it
Was there
warm outside.
another question? Because otherwise,
Winter.
I have a new topic.
Oh no, is it
Yes, the
anarchism?
essay. I had to switch out my computer, and so I don't have the graphic I had this morning.
I don't get it.
But
What is this doing? Like,
thankfully,
the hammer's
Moodle actually has
It's
the
beating me.
PDF version of this, so I will just tell you the main points. Okay. So in Moodle, at the top of the Moodle page, I've already asked you to make sure you look at the essay, and you have an idea what's coming. So what you don't know is what my expectation is. There is a PDF that says, go up to the top. Writing manual. There's a PDF that says writing manual. So here are my highlights. Okay. Number one involves your use of quotes. I've written it up here. What is a primary source? Okay, so when I'm talking about primary sources, I'm talking about basically every document in the book that you have. Okay? When I'm talking about primary source, when you look at my PowerPoint on Virginia and you see the quote from Berkeley about the servants and the Dutch and so on, that quote is a primary source. That's a quote from the time or a document from the time period. Okay, that's a primary source. Anything else, like if you're reading somebody's interpretation of the events, that's a secondary source. So, if your friends in Dr. Skinner's class or friends in Dr. Skinner's class, you have three quotes. And then,
That's dumb.
That's what he does, 3 quotes per page. I have a slightly different way of getting at the same practice. Because you're going to submit to Turnitin, it's going to send you a receipt. And I'd like to keep your reports to be 30% or lower. Okay? Now, the only way to know that in advance is if you actually turn it in early and then you resubmit. So what I'm going to give you are the rules to make sure that that 30% you can get it on the first try. Okay? And the way to do that is, number one, actually they've dealt with that, so that won't work. Really? Yeah. I do want primary sources. Some students some years ago seemed to get it in their head that somehow I don't want any quotes in the paper. That's not true. I want quotes. I do. I just don't want 3 quotes per page. What I want is no more than what would be, so if you're writing a 3-page paper, okay, I want no more than 12 total lines of quotes, which is an average of 4 per page. Okay, if you give me more than that, this 30% starts creeping upwards. Right? So I want you to keep it below that. But I don't want you to give me none.
4 lines?
4 lines per page, so that would be no more than 12. If you're writing a 5-page paper, then it would be no more than 20. You see, so the average is about 4 lines per page. So Skinner says 3 quotes per page. I tell you, no more than 4 total lines per page. Shorter quotes is fine. And whatever you do, don't give me no quotes. That's key. All right. Make sure that you look at my section in there about paragraphs. Students I've had, for some reason, over the last 5 years, it seems like the middle schools and high schools are teaching the students that you should just make your paragraphs as long as you darn well feel like. And I want to, break that habit, so make sure you read my manual. I have some suggestions. What was the other key? You picked that up from an upperclassman.
No, I read that thing.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Is it the upperclassmen lot that taught me with semicolons? Semicolons are okay if they're from a quote, or if you're using them in your citations, which I'll explain next week. For the most part, though, students, if I don't have a rule, they have periodically abused the semicolon, and the semicolon has become, it almost makes you feel sorry for the semicolon. But anyways, my concern about the semicolon has reached a point where a number of students over the years have said that they would like their Halloween costume to be the semicolon just so they can come by my office. I'm not actually afraid of them. I just want you to use the language and not abuse the semicolon, because a lot of times they're being overused. I had one student, a junior one year, who wrote, it was a 7-page paper, and she used 42 semicolons.
Oh my God.
I know that because there were so many, I decided to do Control F and count them. Like 42. That's 6 per page. I mean, it's like practically every sentence. Anyway, it's my example. This is why I have the rule. You get one. Make good use of it to show me that you know how to use it properly. No, but by all means, if you do use it right. Well, then just don't.
Wow.
Yes.
Do you see like original submissions and then
Oh, shoot.
You can always do that. It's
But
set
do
up.
you see the original submission? Or does it move itself
I'm confused. So when you submit it the first time,
Yeah.
it will send you the report back.
Right.
Okay.
And if I submit again,
When you submit again,
Will you see both versions?
yeah.
yeah, it depends on the
Oh, the
timing.
camera's
If you do it like that day that it's due, and you submit it the second time, you may not get that second receipt until the next morning. The second submission sometimes takes longer for the process. For whatever reason. So yes, the short answer is yes, you can see both. You can. But the timing, depending on when it is, you may not get it in the time that you want. Oh, that's fine. I don't know about regular colons. It's just the semicolon that I'm worried is getting out of hand. And so I instituted population controls on my semicolons. Yeah, so I've introduced a bunch of sterile males into the population.
Oh, I thought we were talking about genocide.
That's what they're doing with the Zika virus in Florida, with the mosquitoes. Yes, they introduced a bunch of sterile males that would otherwise carry it, and therefore that's going to keep
But the female mosquitoes are the ones that bite.
What's that?
I just said that.
Yes, but they can't reproduce if the males are sterile.
Maybe they're
Sterile.
Still now.
What did he say? Oh, yes. Oh, it's a cat. Oh, look, it's cats.
They're being rescued.
Oh, okay, so the last thing I want to show you before you go, you need your computer
I
skills.
hate you.
So open up a Word document.
Oh, boy.
They should be fun.
Now, I will give you more details on this next
Shake
week, but-
vigorously. Yum, yum. Oh, my God. True reward is for losers.
No, I wanted Chicago style.
Oh no.
There's a reason for that. What is that?
Don't you do like the citation at the bottom?
Yes, I will explain why
What does that say?
later, just because, but let me show you the
Wow, I
mechanics.
can't read that.
Okay? So, let's say you're going to insert your citations. And by the way, you're going to give me citations for paraphrase documents as well as for your quotes. Cite everything.
What the fuck?
Okay?
Why is
Cite
that kid looking at a
everything.
giant smiley face?
What's that?
I thought of all of them.
Why do I look
So,
being blind? Oh,
I
these are
want
the
you
times
to,
that try men's souls.
Use endnotes.
These are the times that try men's souls.
Is that for some reason Word defaults and assumes that you're writing legal briefs. I don't know why. So you go to references,
No, screw
and
you.
then there's a little arrow here, and you click on that arrow, and it gives you these settings. Now, if you're using a Mac, this box
I don't know
is
where I'm
somewhere else, and I was showing how to do it once, and I don't remember where it is. But if you know how to do it, you can ask another Mac user who knows. Anyway, you'll notice that the format can be changed. I want you to make sure that you change your endnotes to be proper endnotes. This is very important to me because to regular numbers. If you just say it to, if you just say insert an endnote, it will default to these lowercase Roman numerals. I don't want you to do that. I want you to put it in a number format, and you do this, and you say insert, and it will automatically create an endnote for you.
Wait, how do you change it so that there's numbers?
Oh, I see.
Wait.
I don't get it. Oh my god.
And then,
Oh,
the next slide, you want to insert another one.
I love dollar.
It will give you the next number. So there are two things here. One is I want it in regular numbers and I want endnotes. But if you pay attention, I'm going to be emphatic here. If you are doing anything where you are inserting the number by hand rather than doing it this way, and you're changing numbers or adding like anything to it, you're doing it wrong.
Oh.
Because it should, every time you make an entry, it will automatically insert the number and give you the space down below where you can actually write your citation, right? And it will give you the next subsequent number. So if you are doing anything at all manually, then you're not doing what I'm asking you to do.
So the footnotes are the works cited, or is there another thing?
No, I don't need a works cited. These are.
Okay. I just didn't know we needed.
No, I don't need anything separate because you basically just be repeating what's already here. For bigger papers, yeah, but that's it.
Is that your
We're not going to be doing that in this class.
No.
Huh?
It's
So,
a random website.
on Moodle, the same place where you're over this PDF, there is a citations website I have put together. Okay? I will talk more about that next week. Yes, I made a website.
I'm proud of you. I made a website.
So, next week, I'm going to give you some things, because we're finishing this, we're not done yet. The following week, I'm not going to be around, so because I'm going to be at a conference. So that week, I'm going to give you time to work on putting together your essay. But in the meantime, I have some homework for you for Monday, okay, to get you started. It's actually in Moodle already, but I'll tell you what it is. You are going to put in the server a Word document that tells me which of the 3 possible prompts you're going to be writing on. They're very easy to, I ask you the questions in such a way that it would be very easy to convert them into pieces, okay? So I want to know what that is. But I also want you to give me 3 primary sources, okay, that you intend to use to support your claims. And by primary sources, you've already told me you understand, they're historical documents. So they're either from the book, or there's something I put like from that module where we looked at, remember the people who died at Bacon's Rebellion or whatever, that website, those are primary sources. or it's something that's in one of my PowerPoints, but you are citing a specific document, okay? Do not tell me, oh, I'm writing on the ideas one and I'm going to cite class notes. That's not a source, okay? I want to know specifically what you're using. You don't have to, at this point, give it to me in some kind of citation format. But I want you to think about what kinds of things you would use to actually back up your claim. Yes?
When should we have this?
On Monday when I see you. They should be in the server when I arrive here on Monday to class, okay?
You want them on Google?
No, in your folder on the server, same place you put participation. That's where everything in this class will go.
We're not going to print those essays.
No, your essays will not be printed. You will submit them, turn it in, which I'll give you the password for next week. And then you will also, I don't need it right away, but you will put a copy on the server. So you're creating a Word document that's going to give me, again, this is in Moodle, I give you the same instructions. As a Word document, put in your folder on the server that tells me which thesis you're writing on and which, give me at least 3 primary sources that you would use to make your claim.
Well, you have to write out your thesis, or just like
Just so long as I know which one you're writing. Don't give me the whole prompt, I want to know specifically which one, okay? Because you have 3 options.
I did something wrong. I
And
did the wrong thing.
I want the 3 specific sources that will tell me
I guess it's just.
okay? That should be the first step. And that's all for today. Unless you have more questions about Thomas and deity.
When is it ended?
Zombies.
Next weekend.
Oh my god, what the hell?
Yum yum.
Starting
Well,
Friday?
pain actually was pain was
Thursday.
It's like,
Is it a Halloween?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
maybe. I think we still have the idea.
I think they said something about there still being an
Yeah,
idea.
I heard something about that there's still going to be an I day.
Thank God.
I know there's a one random week where we have the I day, but it's
I think
Only
right.
interesting.
Yeah, no, that's the one. I'm pretty sure that's the one.
next